What an absolute pleasure it is to be back here at the CII Tourism Summit. I've done a few of these, so it's great to be amongst you here. You know, as we were just talking about where the tourism sector stands in India today, and I was just discussing that with Mr. Kant. I mean, who better to talk about tourism than Mr. Kant, the incredible India man himself? And we've had this conversation about how tourism in India continues to be the low-hanging fruit, but it's within the low-hanging fruit that's ripe for the picking for many, many years now. And while things have changed for the better, there is immense potential. There is immense headroom for further growth, and that is what we are hoping to discuss and debate here today. So without further ado, Mr. Kant, let me get things started with you. As I said, you're the incredible India man, sir. What do we do to make India a magnet for foreign tourism, for foreign tourists to come into India? I set the context by giving some numbers there in terms of where we stand when we talk about foreign tourists versus where some of our peers stand within the region. Why the gap? How do we bridge it?
So, Shereen, 3 points. First and foremost, I think we need to, the industry needs to focus not on growth or dollars. It needs to highlight the job potential of the tourism sector. The multiplier impact of tourism is enormous on job creation. India needs jobs. There's no better sector than tourism which can create jobs, and that is something which the industry must go and tell every single chief minister. My view is that instead of holding the CII conference in Taj Mahal Hotel, they should go out to the states and hold it in all the states where there's huge tourism potential, so that much like what Rajasthan and Kerala have benefited from job creation, other states, and they should go and tell the chief ministers that they will not win the next election without focusing on tourism, which will create jobs for them. India must become the center of meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibitions. The MICE market is huge. It's big. We haven't tapped into the MICE market. And this market is possible now with Yashobhumi and with Bharat Mandapam. We should ensure, much like Germany did with its bosses, that we are able to attract the biggest meetings from around the world, because Yashobhumi has been designed to be the biggest in the world today. It's better than any convention center or exhibition center as compared to China. So you should be able to attract the biggest MICE events from across the world into India.
Let me start by getting industry into the conversation, and Puneet Chhatwal, I'll ask you, to Mr. Kant's point that industry needs to tell chief ministers that this is going to be your biggest job creating sector. Where I would imagine that those conversations are ongoing, that those conversations have happened. What are you hearing back from governments that you deal with today? Is this a priority even?
The answer is yes, it's positive, it's a priority. The discussions have started, but where I disagree with Mr. Kant is actually the center is lagging behind. My personal opinion is even the CII chapter is called Tourism and Hospitality. The Tourism and Hospitality Association's apex body is called Faith. But I think the time has come that we should bring the three together: tourism, hospitality, and civil aviation. Because the problem is when we talk tourism, we just get lost in domestic and foreign tourism or inbound travel. But there is far more. The jobs are also created. Maximum multiplicator is hospitality. And if civil aviation doesn't work, which he alluded to, with Air India, Indigo, etc., together with this sector, we will not make the kind of progress. So it's not this or that. It is center and state. Center has to give infrastructure status, which has been, limited for whatever reason were right 12, 14 years ago. If you're spending so much money as a strategic initiative of the government on building roads and trains and airports, you need hospitality next to it. So you have to incentivize it. You cannot be now living in as a number 5 economy, becoming number 4, and maybe number 3 by 2027. Also that this is a luxury sector, they should be taxed the highest. These days are gone. or have to go. Otherwise, jobs will not get
Well,
created.
they're clearly not gone.
They are not gone, but they have to go.
Let me bring Mr. Anand into the conversation as well. Just to take up where Puneet left the conversation, Mr. Anand, he's basically saying that we need to have a holistic approach, break down these silos of tourism operating separately, aviation operating separately, because they are all interconnected and the linkages are very deep. And we need to, in fact, ensure that it becomes seamless. Now, as the man running Faith at this point in time, do you believe that there is a move towards this kind of integration, this kind of seamlessness? What should the next steps be in order for us to make that happen?
So, Shereen, you're familiar with, and this is really talking about the past, that there was this man walking down the street and he seemed a little lost. So there was this lovely bystander person, great character like Puneet, who felt sorry for him and asked him, he said, "Sir, what are you looking for? Where are you going?" So he said, I really don't know. So Puneet tells him, well, if you don't know, then any road will take you there. But I think that's what tourism was for a very long time, till I think CII, everybody got together and gave tourism a vision. I think there's a great step forward. Today we have a vision, right? But any vision has to be long-term. Let me take the example of Incredible India. We should have built up on Incredible India and continue to build there. A great example is the Red Sea project. Right in Saudi Arabia, they've taken it to 2030. They've taken the Saudi Games, the FIFA for 2034. They've got a target of 80 million there. Anyway, that having been said, the question here is, can it be a game changer for India?
Yeah.
I think Faith had put together a document, which the minister himself quoted today, was that tourism can be a $3 trillion economy by 2047. Very quickly, without getting into numbers, we are today at 211 million. We are talking of 3 billion by 2047. Business as usual will take us to 140, 1.4, right? That leaves a delta of 1.6. That 1.6 can come from three sources. Increase the length of stay, increase the number of visitors. Mr. Kant likely said, look at America, etc., and increase the spend from each one of them. This is really... Now, what are the four levers that we have?
Yeah.
I fully agree with Mr. Kant. While domestic tourism is important, we only have 1% of millionaires in India of the world. We need to get in the foreigners into India, right, in the focus countries. There are four big levers that we have. The biggest one that we have, a Disneyland can be replicated. It was replicated in Tokyo, everywhere or the other. Las Vegas can be replicated by Macau, but cultural heritage can never be replicated. Our purple cow, our biggest strength is the 7,000 years of civilization. And I've been saying this in the past, and I say this today, in our past lies our future. This is what India really needs to push, and this is what Mr. Kant also said. The second lever is wellness. Right? The pandemic changed the word lifespan to health span.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's talking of health span. Yoga, Ayurveda, what is that all related to? Wellness, again part of our culture, goes back 7,000 years, irrepeatable. MICE, great segment, we have only 1% of it. We could have complained 5 years back that we didn't have airports and we didn't have convention centers.
Yeah.
Today, we have the best of them everywhere. Last but not the least, experiences, again referred to by Mr. Kant, etc., and by Puneet. We talk of what is called live tourism, right? Bionomics, right? The Taylor Swift show, $5 billion it added to the economy. Sports, a $555 trillion business, right? The Qatar in the FIFA got 5.8 billion alone, etc. So to this, if we add the experiences to our culture, etc., and combine the two together, we have a great winning story, and this can be the game changer for India. Where do we look? We look at two different areas. We look at US and UK, which is a must. You can't ignore them. But then there is something called backyard travel, post the pandemic, where people are looking at your neighborhood. Our neighborhood, South Asia, has $400 billion of travel and tourism, right? India is the least exposed out of these countries. 10% of that could add $40 billion.
Janmejaya, Sinha, what would you put down as the next big 5 steps?
The first thing I want to tell you, Shereen, is that Amitabh and Puneet wanted to show me out. They hear me talking in these economic forums and financial forums, so they put me on a forum next to Amitabh, you know, who is this God's own country guy who has fallen down to Incredible India. And now I'm being asked, you know, but anyway, so now that I'm being asked, with Puneet and Deep and Mr. Anand there, I'm not going to talk about the industry. I'm going to say 3 things that I believe India should think of. First, we should forget about India. Because, you know, whatever the vision, one of the things that I'm a consultant, so whenever I talk to a company, I say, how do you think about the vision, right? And I would say we should have 28 countries in India. Each state should have its target for tourism. Bihar should have a 15 million target, right? And then it should work about its 15 million target, which should be around Buddhism, around Jainism, around stuff like that. And Rajasthan should have a different target with a different vision. Whenever we say India, we try and combine religious sites, wellness, leisure, tourism, and so the focus gets a bit diluted. So let's get the states to articulate, like you had done, God's own country for Kerala, and look where it took Kerala. So let's do that with the other 28 states. That's really a big deal. The second big deal is there should be a few places where the MEA does not look at reciprocity, but looks at opportunity and says, if you're getting a lot of tourists from a particular country, let's give them visa ease. I mean, very unlikely that Americans are planning to settle in India, right? I mean, some time will take. So give that there. I mean, and say, okay, for these particular reasons, we can give you tourism. And the third idea that I have, I was at a summit some time ago in Goa, where, the former Google CEO, Eric Schmidt, said, how do you value intelligence? Let's say intelligence is a commodity. What would you do? Because he said intelligence is language, connections, and memory. Now, if language is a commodity, let's make it so. Let every guide have something in his ear which translates whatever language the person is speaking in, and his answers are translated in that language. So we get rid of, when the Japanese come, they have a real problem with cleanliness and language. So we can actually deal with that. So I think that we need to create a $100 thing which can just be fitted into the ears and go forward with that. So those are my three ideas said out of ignorance rather than great knowledge.
And you'll give more only if you're paid your consulting fee, I would imagine. Yeah, that's how consultants work. That's how consultant works, don't they? Deep, just to build on this theme of becoming the magnet, many tangible ideas there, but I'm trying to get more in terms of the execution roadmap as next steps. So what's the ask of industry? Of course, we've got the budget around the corner. The demand for infrastructure status is not new. It's been on the cards for many, many years. I don't know if it'll go anywhere this time around either. But outside of that, the tangible next steps.
Yeah. I tend to agree with everything that's said, except, like I said in the previous session, I do believe that domestic tourism is the cake, but foreign tourism, sir, is the icing on the cake. So we do need both, and it's not either or. I think it'll only help. I'd like to actually get into the root cause analysis of why we haven't even picked up from pre-COVID levels.
Yeah.
And if I see the root cause analysis, it is in COVID, obviously shook the world. Most foreign tourists plan very well in advance. So the planning cycle is actually a year for the Western world. And the point that Amitabh made is very valid, that if we haven't done our marketing, we don't have our brochures, they still work in a very old world manner. They need the brochure series, they need to plan. So firstly, if you're not doing marketing, they're not coming right now. If you're doing planning, if you're doing marketing today, they might come after a year. But what's shaken the confidence is actually two very basic building blocks. And that is safety.
Okay.
And that's hygiene.
Okay.
Safety and hygiene are two areas where anyone, even I'm a very proud Indian, but I feel very sad about this when we see what we do in our own touristy places, in our cities. And that's the reason why inbound tourism has always been a bipolar story. Bipolar, you have the high-end tourists, rose-tinted glasses, come and stay in fantastic hotels, go in your guided cars, etc., air-conditioned, everything, love India, see the Golden Triangle, etc., etc. They build their own story, they go back and tell their memoirs, etc. Or you have the backpackers. The middle-class family sitting in the US or sitting in Europe or any other part of the world does not think of India, but they'll go to Thailand, but they'll go to Bali, and but they'll go to Turkey, and they'll go to Morocco, they'll go to Kenya, they'll go all of these places. So they're not scared of traveling far. They're just saying when we get there, we want to make sure we're safe and secure. We can enjoy the whole day. We will sightsee in the day. But what are we going to do in the evening?
Speaking of creating a luxury tourism industry, Lakshyaraj, let me come to you and address that very same question with you. We were just talking about room rates in Udaipur at this point in time, and of course skyrocketing. But how do we, A, get more travelers in? How do we get them to stay longer? Is it easier for people like you, especially as we build out the luxury side of the market?
Well, thank you first and foremost for putting me right at the end of all the legends that are sitting on this stage. I was literally thinking you're just running away. I said, after all of them, what am I going to say? But no, but I think there are a lot of things that we need to understand, but I think everything has really been summed up really, really well. But the one thing that we really need to talk about at this point, and I think we were really happy when the resurgent Rajasthan took place and our Honorable Prime Minister came and inaugurated that and specifically spoke about heritage tourism. Now that was something that was just lying beyond the back burner. Nobody was really talking about it. It was just there. And talking about experiential tourism. Yeah. Now, these are the sort of things that kind of bring people like us to life. And it's not something that can be done in isolation. It cannot be done by one person. A leaf out of my grandfather's book of what he thought or said for the Lake Palace specifically, that these palaces were built and lived in before America was discovered. Now, and we are really, really happy that people like the Taj, our partners, we are the longest associated partners in independent India today for over 50 years. The only partnership that survived for as long as it has, and it's their first hotel they've taken out after their own hotel in the late 60s. So we're really happy that this experiential tourism is getting to people. And secondly, that what my dad used to say, and always often says, that heritage hospitality is not about running hot water, where you have somebody literally with 2 buckets and running with hot water. It's really changed. It's come a very, very long way. And today, a destination like Udaipur is being spoken about globally in the same breath as any other part of the world when it comes to weddings. Obviously began under great criticism, saying that what are these jokers doing? What is this circus up to 30 years ago? And today, either you talk about Italy in the same breath, or you talk about Udaipur or Lake Pichola or the Lake Palace or the Jagmandir in the same breath. So, so that is the power that we've been able to achieve. And it's not been a single person's achievement. It's been the entire community, the entire industry that's put a shoulder to the wheel and has been able to bring things to standard to where they are today. But what we really need to understand is that enough?
Yeah.
So that is where we really need the push. People need to change their mindsets as far as luxury hospitality is concerned. It's something that we need to learn to appreciate and not look at it with a condescending sort of an approach, because it is something that goes way beyond what, generally people have a vibe as far as tourism is concerned. And obviously connectivity, so talking of Udaipur again, bringing the greatest and the largest weddings. We still don't have an international airport there. Having the ease of people having to fly down privately into that city is again a bit of a root canal, So, so those are the sort of things that people really need to kind of look at, and that's the sort of support.
How many root canals do you go through every day?
I don't want to go down that route. Just getting calls at 3 a.m. asking people asking for help, and for the most simplest things, you don't buy a car because you need to fill petrol in it. You buy a car because you need to go from place A to place B. The same way, you don't start a business because you want to make money. You start a business because you want to build communities. And I think that's what the industry has always done. There's a beautiful couplet in Hindi that comes to my mind, which I'd like to share. And I think that's what I've learned from my seniors on stage today as well. कि नियत जिसकी अच्छी है, किस्मत उसकी दासी है, कर्म जिसके अच्छे हैं, उसके घर में मथुरा काशी है.
Mr. Kant, let's address the capital issue. Now, for the kind of infrastructure build out, and it's happening across different spaces. Roads and highways is taking care as far as the road aspect is concerned. Civil aviation is doing its bit on air connectivity. But, on balance, what do you believe is the need of the hour now in terms of capital that this sector will require to be able to deliver on the promise and the potential? Can we envisage a new way of public-private partnership to take this forward?
So, Shereen, first and foremost, let me say that during G20, we took our delegates to about 220 destinations of India. I didn't get a single complaint. All of them went back really happy, and when Brazil did its G20 presidency, everybody remembered India. There was nostalgic memories of India, and on top of the list was Udaipur. the experience was just mind-boggling for them. So my belief is that as far as tourism is concerned, this is going to be not only India's decade, this is going to be India's century. And this is going to be India's century because no country I'm saying this because tourism is multi-sectoral.
Yeah.
The great leaders who look at it from a tourism perspective, but tourism grows when many other things happen in the country. And it is going to be India's decade and India's century because we are the only country in the world which is actually making 8 airports and 3 metros every single year. We are the only country which is doing 30 kilometers of roads and about 12 kilometers of train connectivity every day. There's no country in the world which is doing this. And I'm absolutely convinced that, if you added in the last 7-8 years about 88,000 kilometers of roads, you've added highways, expressways, many other things. And that will have a huge multiplier impact on India's tourism. When I was in tourism, there was a huge shortage of clean sheets and clean bathrooms in Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. If you go to Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, you get top-class hotels. And, I'm really happy that Taj has really created these residences into great assets and many other things and moved into Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. And so what I feel is that we are the only country which is today a $4 trillion economy, which is growing at 8.2%. Now, if you grow at that rate at a $4 trillion base, and you're aiming to be a $30 trillion
Where's
economy.
the 8.2 number coming from, sir?
Last year. We grew at 8.2% last year. And don't go by this quarter. We'll bounce back.
Yeah.
So my view is that when no country in the world with a $4 trillion base growing at 8.2%, its tourism is bound to grow and expand rapidly. And it's for us really to use this opportunity to ride on this wave of growth and exploit it to the full. And my view is that much like the share prices of in IHC and ITC all have boomed because of his bonuses have boomed because of the share prices booming. I mean, his shares used to be 40, 50 bucks. It's 850 bucks or something now. So hotel industry, each
Nakul,
one
Anand
of you
is checking the ITC share price at this point in time.
No. So each one of you is going to be a billionaire entrepreneur from India because of the tourism industry. The next big wave is going to be the tourism industry of India. And we just need to make sure that when this growth, expansion, really booming of tourism industry takes place, we are able to just chip in at the right places by making sure that we push the states. We push the states, their chief ministers, to take ownership of job creation. We push them forward to create their own brands. We push them forward to provide the last mile connectivity, because when this growth takes place, it should be an orderly growth for job creation.
Ms. Anand, the final word to you, sir.
The final word, I take Mr. Kant's point that if you're all things to all people, you end up being nothing. I said we haven't given a single message. We give a multiple messages, and I'm equally responsible, having headed many forums. So the single message is that create employment. We must get that message across. And if we get that message across, I was just imagining and dreaming that next year CII summit or the year after, we have created that push to a pull.
Yeah.
And I imagine a room where all the private sector is sitting here and all the government, including the Prime Minister, sitting there, asking the private sector, what can we do for you for tourism? That would be a real dream.
Well, we hope that dream is actually realized as early as next year. I would love to host that conversation again. But many, many thanks to the panel for joining us here.